Close your eyes and breathe in. Not today's scent of microwave meals or takeaway wrappers, but something denser, earthier. It's 1952, and the kitchen is thick with steam. You can almost taste the boiled cabbage clinging to the walls. A damp coat hangs by the back door, still cold from the fog outside. Somewhere, the coal fire crackles, stubbornly warming a modest front room. The wireless hums quietly. Maybe the shipping forecast, maybe a bit of Vera Lynn, and in the kitchen, something bubbles slowly on the stove. Dinner isn't ready yet, but the smell gives it away. Plain, filling, no nonsense. You can hear your stomach rumble. It's not just about what's cooking, it's about the rhythm of the evening, the hush that settles over the home, the wait for that one shared moment when plates are served and stories begin. But what exactly was on the plate? Most people today have no idea just how inventive mums had to be in 1952. Despite the war ending 7 years earlier, rationing was still very much a part of British life. In fact, meat, cheese, butter, even tea, were all still tightly controlled. Every household had a little ration book with pages of coupons, each one your key to getting just enough to get by. And if you lost it, tough luck. The system wasn't just about limits, it was about fairness. A butcher couldn't give you an extra chop just because he liked you. Everything had to be counted, weighed, and documented. Points were traded like currency, and queues outside shops were a daily ritual. Housewives became magicians. One sausage had to stretch into a meal for 4, patted out with breadcrumbs, oats, or whatever scraps were at hand. There were culinary oddities, too. Dried egg powder, Spam, Woolton pie, which was essentially root veg baked under a crust of mashed potato. It wasn't glamorous, but it filled hungry bellies. This wasn't a time of abundance, it was a time of ingenuity. And dinner, somehow, still found its way to the table. But what did that dinner actually look like? There's one dinner item that shocked American visitors in the 1950s: bread and dripping. To them, it seemed unimaginable. Spreading solidified meat fat onto slices of bread and calling it a treat. But to many British families, especially the working class, it was normal. It was delicious. It was survival dressed up as comfort. Dinners in 1952 were built from necessity, not choice. For a working-class family, the evening meal might be bubble and squeak, last night's veg fried into something hearty. Or maybe a spoonful of corned beef with boiled potatoes, cabbage, and a lump of margarine. Spam, too, made regular appearances, its jelly coating scraped off and tucked into sandwiches or sliced into stews. The portions weren't generous, but they were shared. In slightly more comfortable homes, Sunday roast was a sacred tradition. A small joint of beef or lamb, carefully cooked and sliced impossibly thin to serve everyone. Leftovers were stretched through the week, minced into cottage pie, diced into stews, or cold with pickled beetroot. Waste was a sin. Everything had to count. Children, wide-eyed and hungry, knew their place at the table. Dad was served first, elbows off, no interruptions. Meals were often quiet, except for the scrape of cutlery or the hum of the wireless in the next room. You waited for seconds, if there were any, and you never complained. Not about lumpy gravy or bland cabbage. You were lucky to have it. Some children still recall the joy of scraping the pan for the last drops of gravy. Others remember jelly with tinned fruit on Sundays, or a spoon of condensed milk stolen straight from the tin. Luxuries that felt like treasure, and in the background something new was creeping in. Bird's-eye fish fingers. Quick to cook, easy to serve, and oddly exciting. They hinted at a future of convenience, but not quite yet. The kitchens themselves were small, often barely bigger than a hallway. A single gas cooker with one working ring. Enamel pans that chipped at the edges. No fancy blenders or mixers, just elbow grease and a wooden spoon. Tin trays for meals in front of the telly were becoming popular, though many still sat around a wooden table, no matter how cramped. And yet, with so little, these meals carried weight. They were moments of togetherness. a signal that, despite post-war hardship and rationing, home life endured. Even the humblest dinner, boiled potatoes, a slice of meat, a slab of sweat pudding, was served with pride. Housewives measured success not in recipes, but in full stomachs and quiet thanks. We often look back at these meals and see blandness, but for those who lived it, dinner was warmth, routine, a sense of order, and maybe, just maybe, a sliver of joy on an otherwise gray day. Because back then, dinner wasn't just food, it was family, effort, and dignity, ladled carefully onto every plate. But what did that shared table mean beyond hunger? It wasn't what was on the plate, it was who was around it. Dinner in 1952 may not have looked like much, a few root vegetables, a scrape of meat, maybe gravy if you were lucky. But it was the moment families came together. In a world still marked by ration lines and quiet grief, the evening meal was more than sustenance. It was structure. It was safety. Around the table, roles were understood. Mom dished up, Dad carved, kids waited their turn. Sometimes there was chatter about the day at work, the neighbor's new coat, the price of coal. Other nights, silence settled in, thick as steam on the windows. And yet, even in silence, there was connection. Jokes were passed like salt, news shared like pudding. It was here, night after night, that family happened. Not through grand gestures, but through routine. Even hunger had its dignity, wrapped in the ritual of passing plates, of wiping sauce from a child's cheek. For many, those meals are now just memories. But the feeling remains, that dinner meant something. It was proof you had made it through another day together. And now, all these years later, how does it compare? We've never had more food, but maybe less dinner. Today, meals arrive at our doors with a tap, eaten alone or in front of screens. The idea of everyone sitting down, waiting their turn, and sharing one hot meal feels oddly distant. Convenience has replaced ritual. Choice has replaced patience. And yet, something was gained back then. Dinner in 1952 wasn't perfect or plentiful, but it was dependable. A pause in the day. A chance to connect, however quietly. Even when the food was simple, the moment mattered. Perhaps we've traded too much in the name of speed. Fast food, quick bites, solo snacking. They fill us, but do they ground us? We may not want to return to cabbage water and Spam, but the spirit of gathering, of making time, not just making food, is worth remembering. Because dinner back then wasn't just a meal, it was a ritual.